I'm Kathy Elkins, your life insurance marketer with Premier Marketing. Thank you for taking time away from your busy schedule to go over our great webinar that we have for you today with Assurity. I have with me Jeff McClendon online. He's going to be going over juvenile whole life. One thing that we do a lot here is we see a lot of agents call in about and asking about, do we do juvenile policies? 14, 15 days on up. Yes, we do a tremendous amount of business with this. And Assurity is a perfect fit with their whole life options. Jeff, you're there. Hello, how are you?
Hello, Kathy, my friend. I am doing awesome, and thank you so much for inviting me today. We've got Kathy, we've got a pretty awesome topic today, and it may not be front and center for a lot of the advisors that are listening in, but I want to provide you some insights and the reason why we want to talk about juvenile whole life today. Starting off with, Assurity is a mutual company, and I mention this because I do think it's very important, Kathy. We're a mutual company based out of Lincoln, Nebraska. We've been in business for many years. We've got excellent ratings. We're a certified B Corporation. We are a company that is friendly to our customers. And the reason I mention that is, in addition to being a mutual company, we have tools. We utilize, Kathy, a lot of technology, with our products, with our processes, with our underwriting process. We use technology a lot in our day-to-day business, and we provide this technology to the field to be able to allow you to run a quick quote, to easily access material. And I get this quite a bit, like, hey, I've got a meeting with a client in 2 hours. I'm looking for something on juvenile whole life. We've got resources available to you all that are very easy to access. In addition, if you have questions about the sale, if you have questions about the product, the underwriting, the process, we are a mutual company, again, based out of Lincoln, Nebraska, and our folks really enjoy interacting with the field. So don't hesitate to reach out to your friends at Premier, who's an amazing organization, one of our top customers here at Assurity. But know that Assurity behind the scenes, we're here to support you as well. So, Kathy, today the focus is going to be on juvenile whole life, and I want to share with you some insights. I'm going to switch over to this slide so you can kind of read about the products. But, juvenile whole life is a market that personally I haven't really spent a ton of time in. We haven't been actively marketing this. It's not something that's, top on our priority list. But what we saw in 24 and 25 was a substantial increase in the amount of juvenile whole life cases that we were getting. And that kind of opened our eyes to the market. So what we did is we went in there and not only revamped our product, Kathy, we revamped the process, because we understand juvenile whole life, you're talking about typically pretty low premiums. So we have to make that process, the sales process, the application process, as quick, fast, and easy as possible to make it worthwhile. So to kick this off today, we did announce 2 new whole life plans that have been selling very, very well for us. The Protect Plus and the Perform Plus. I'm going to tell you the major difference between the two because they're very similar in the fact that they've got living benefits, minimum face amount of $10,000, Kathy. I know you and I have talked about that, how Assurity has some of the industry low face amounts. It includes living benefits. It includes a lot of features. But the interesting thing is we have a solution for those parents or grandparents that are looking to have insurance coverage on their child or grandchild, and they're looking for the lowest cost option. So we have that Protect Plus, which is one of the lowest cost whole lives in the industry that does include living benefits. It is a participating product. Also, and we're seeing more of this, Kathy, where maybe it's grandma and grandpa, or maybe it is mom and dad that want to insure their kids at a young age, with the idea of being able to grow a cash value that would have, the functionality later on down the road of maybe helping offset some of the college costs. I was talking to an advisor a couple weeks ago, and he had a client, and they were looking at taking a withdrawal from a juvenile whole life plan because that juvenile is now an adult and they're buying their first house. So they were looking at taking money out of that whole life to be able to put a down payment on a house for their child, for their grandchild. So we have two different options: a low cost par whole life, and we have a Perform Plus, which is more of a cash value driven option for customers out there. But the juvenile space we continue to see growth in. I do want to make a point here, and you notice the second to the last bullet point. Traditionally, whole life is going to be a pay for life. You're going to pay a premium every month for the rest of that insured's life. We do have, and we're seeing more attraction towards that 10 or 20 pay option, specifically in the juvenile space. But do know that we have multiple payment options there to kind of fit within the budget of, again, mom or dad, grandma or grandpa. With Children's Whole Life, you have those two base plans to choose from: low cost and then a higher cash value. One of the things that we've done, actually twofold. Number one, there are now only 3 health questions, Kathy. When you submit a juvenile whole life case, there's 3 health questions. So we have reduced the number of questions in that overall application process to just 3 medical questions. In addition to that, we now allow grandparents to sign. We understand sometimes grandma and grandpa are financially more fit to be able to provide the coverage. They have a desire to protect little Johnny and Susie as they grow older. So grandparents can now sign, and we don't need the parent's signature to proceed. Last but not least, and this is a big one. This is the number one question, Kathy, that I get, and that is, do you require the parents to have twice as much coverage as the kids? How does the financials all work? Realistically speaking, up to 100,000, we're totally fine with that. We see a lot of that business where it's 50, 75, 100,000 per child. Not a big deal at all. We're not going to ask you to provide evidence of, what mom and dad have in force. Matter of fact, we can go up to around 300,000 without having to require much of any financial information. Once you get above that 300,000 mark, then we're going to start asking those questions. How much does mom and dad have in force? Who's the owner? Is it grandma and grandpa? What's their financial interest? So we will dig into that a little bit more, but we've tried to streamline this process to make it quick, fast, and easy, not only from an underwriting standpoint, but from the financial standpoint, and allowing grandma and grandpa to sign. So pretty robust offering there. I do want to comment, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the juvenile space. But in addition to our new whole life plans that we have a single premium whole life. And this has been a pretty hot product, specifically this time of year. As families get together around the holidays, I don't want to say insurance is a normal topic of conversation, but we do have families that get together around the holidays and they start having these discussions about what happens when I pass, who's going to take care of this person, how are we going to pay off this debt? Insurance does become a topic of conversation sometimes. In what we've seen is there are some folks that do want to just pay a single premium. So if you have a client that is looking to, maybe they've got some money in a CD, maybe they've got some money in savings, they have those lazy assets and they really want to leverage them for the benefit, we can do a single premium, a true single premium whole life. It is a participating plan and it does offer living benefits. So a pretty robust offering. What you hear me saying is we have solutions for pretty much any scenario that you're going to come across in that juvenile space. And I'm going to actually go back here to this Protect Plus and Perform Plus slide, Kathy, and share what I mentioned about the increase in the juvenile whole life with us. The cycle time, the average time that it takes to underwrite these cases is pretty minimal. 2 things that I'll mention from an underwriting standpoint that could potentially cause issues that I see. Juvenile onset diabetics, anybody with a cancer history at a young age, or severe asthmatics. People with asthma, kids with asthma that have, they've got to use that inhaler on a regular basis. Those are the kind of the three segments that I see we will need to dig into the underwriting on those a little bit more. But for the most part, these cases just go through pretty darn quick and easy. So it's a nice solution for mom and dad, grandma and grandpa in its robust coverage, which does include, and I want to emphasize this, Kathy, we do offer living benefits, including the juvenile space. So when you have a Protect or a Perform Plus or even a single premium, you do have those living benefits that are built into the contract that are even applicable in the juvenile segment. So a critical illness, a chronic illness, and a terminal illness, God forbid we never want to have to go down that route, especially with, talking about our youngsters out there. But do know that we do have those built into the contract that are available for juveniles. So pretty strong offering from Assurity, streamlined the process, enhanced our product, and made it really just a phenomenal sales aspect or a sales point. When you're interacting with your customers, don't forget that you have that, the kids and the grandkids out there that are good prospects for us. I am a big fan, Kathy, and I'll finish with this comment. I am a big fan of a guaranteed insurability rider. You and I have had many conversations about this, but adding that guaranteed insurability rider, especially at the younger ages, allows them to come back to us down the road and increase that coverage. And the medical aspect of underwriting does not even come to play. All we need to do is justify financially that they qualify for the additional coverage, and we're going to issue it. So that guaranteed insurability rider is one that I would include on all of the illustrations that we're running in the juvenile space. So for advisors out there, GIR is one of those riders that I would encourage you to look at because it does add a lot of potential down the road, and removing that life insurance underwriting from it is key there. So with that, Kathy, I would like to hand it back over to you. I'm sure you've got some questions for me.
Oh, I do. I got some comments a little bit. For what we see here, and Jeff, we've talked about this several times, we really, when we're running quotes, we put that GIR rider on the policy, not for the fact of, to raising premiums or anything, but we explain that out to the agents. What if you have a healthy, 1-year-old baby today, but what if they have diabetes down the road?
Yep.
That's going to be less chance of them getting any type of life insurance later as they need it, maybe when they go to college or until, go to school, that they want to put more insurance on them. It's another way of being able to do that later in life for them. And there's multiple ways they can add additional life insurance down the road. So that's a very good rider that we try to make sure it's on every child's policy, that when we send a quote out to the agents here. Your 3-question health now is phenomenal. It's taking so much less time for an agent to enter the details online and just get a quick policy issued, because it just takes so much, it's just a lot quicker of time. I've heard from the agents, they're loving the new products, they're loving the new opportunities that they have for their clients. A true 10 pay, a true 20 pay, paid up at 65, or your continuous pay to 100. It gives them those options that a lot of agents have been calling and asking for years. So thank you for adding those to your product. That's very, very useful for us as running quotes here too. So
and I think, Kathy, if I can interject here, in addition to the fact that we're seeing growth in this space, which is awesome. I mean, we love this business. And that's why we want to make it as quick, fast, and easy for you all at Premier and all your advisors to write this business with us. We've got a great product, a great process, and it's lending itself to being able to truly protect an entire family. Likely an advisor's gone in there and they've provided life insurance and other products to mom and dad, but adding on the kids and being provide coverage for the kids in an easy process at a very, very low cost that has a tremendous amount of upside potential. That's why I mentioned this is a par whole life. We're talking about participating whole life, since Assurity is a mutual company with living benefits built in. And I don't want to say that that's unheard of in the industry. I'm just not familiar with many other carriers out there that are offering living benefits at the younger ages. And again, I'll say we never want to have to go down that road, right? We hope that our youth are healthy and live a long and prosperous life. But God forbid something does happen, knowing
Right.
that you have that additional benefit built in there. It's not an add-on rider. These are built in. Yeah, we've got a great solution here. And I think for the advisors listening in to us today, it's an option for you all to have deeper conversations with your customers, to be able to protect more members of that family. And as you all, as we all know, right, we're all looking for leads. We're all looking for more people to talk to. When you can get the kids covered, and one of the things that I'll mention, Kathy, is going back to, as the children get older, and if you look at that Perform Plus product, that scenario of, hey, Johnny's now buying his first home, having access to some cash to provide a down payment on a first home, that's the advantage of doing a product like this. That's not only protecting their life, protecting their health with living benefits, but it's got cash value that you can access. So it's a really, really strong solution, and I'm very thankful that Premier is given us the time here at Assurity to kind of dig into this market and our advantages in this market.
Hey, Jeff, thank you for going over that. Juvenile whole life is picking up for our market here with our agents, just for the fact that they're asking questions. What else can we do?
Mm-hmm.
What's the next
Yeah.
thing we can do? Premier has so many different options between like health products. We've got final expense products. We've got the life, we've got the annuity products, but they're looking for additional ways to be able to get in front of a client. And talking about children's whole life options, that's been a big one since day one. Since children are born, parents are out there looking, what do I need to do? Where can I go? And they don't have options. So by be able to talk to clients that have grandchildren or have children themselves, giving them the options, it's a huge story to tell. Talk to them about it, get in depth with them, and you're going to walk away with more sales and more leads by them explaining it to their next door neighbors or for other family and friends and other members that they have. This is what I just did for my child. You're going to love this. Here's my agent's name, or you really need to go talk to my agent next or my client next door because I know they're looking for the exact same thing. So yeah, your whole life is amazing. So I'm so happy that you're able to join us today and go over this detail with us. If anyone's got any questions, needs some more help, or would like to get some quotes, please give us a call at 800-365-8208. Team extension is 607, and someone should be able to help you out with that. But thank you, Jeff, so much for taking the time and joining me today to do this. Very, very great information out there to share.
You bet. Well, cheers to everyone out there. Good selling. And again, please lean on our friends at Premier, an amazing organization that is willing to help you in your business. And know that Assurity behind the scenes, we're here to support you as well. So take care, Kathy. Thank you as always.
All right. Take care. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody, for joining.